Cataclysm Dark Days Ahead is a post-apocalyptic survival roguelike RPG. Not only is it an amazing game, but it's also free and open source, it has a ton of mods and receives daily updates. Set in near-future New England, Cataclysm puts you in the shoes of a survivor. You can start the game as a bionically enhanced police officer, but maybe a crackhead is more your style. A doctor might know how to patch up wounds, but grandmas possess the vital skill of knitting, just don't mind the aching knees. Other than selecting your character, you can choose where, when, and in what situation you begin. Maybe don't pick a gimp if you plan to start inside a zombie-filled mall. Or do, I'm not your dad. Your goal? Survive. Maybe something more. Install bionics, develop mutations, fortify a base, clear and loot dangerous places, and build your own murder machine. To say that this game is unique is an understatement. First of all, survival games don't get more complex than this. Others might be content to just have you scavenge trash bins, punch trees, and smelt the occasional iron. Not Cataclysm, no sir. Most items can be disassembled and their batteries unloaded, furniture can be deconstructed, and even walls can be torn down for materials. Crafting recipes, from food to clothing to weapons to electronics, allow for a great degree of flexibility, giving the player plenty of options. Secondly, the threat. An undead horde? Nothing that the NOV 5.56 can fix. Gigantic cart-throwing hulks, eldritch horrors, and power armor-wearing zombies might require a bigger caliber. Hives of gigantic mutated insects, troops of sentient and contagious mushrooms, or, with the right mod, otherworldly sorcerers perched on a floating temple might require a different approach altogether. As long as you don't mind having to memorize a billion hotkeys, moving your character with a numpad and hoarding gigantic piles of loot, this might be the game for you. As expected of a game this massive and updated this much, it's going to take a while to understand and master the mechanics. For example, if there's something we humans hate, it's getting wet. It makes us downright suicidal. The only thing that's worse is, of course, studying. Too bad reading books is the main way to gain knowledge, which is a problem because we need to be happy to focus more, and if studying lowers our happiness and thus our focus, we'll have to spend more time studying. It's a vicious circle. However, as humans actually love being wet as long as we wear swimsuits. So, of course, the best way to study is to do it in a pool, as long as you make a conscious effort not to improve your swimming while doing it. Makes sense, right, fellow humans? But forget about the mechanics for now. What I love about this game is the player-driven narratives that unravel. Of course, you can be as autistic as you like. In one playthrough, I played as a Muay Thai knowing priest, hellbent on freeing the immortal souls trapped in their undead cages while protecting all the NPCs I could find. It didn't go too well, mostly because NPCs are retarded, but also because I needed speechcraft to stop them from committing suicide by me. Yes, you two people with guns, hands up so I can steal your nothing. I've got no weapons and I'm not afraid to use them. Let me open a parenthesis on NPCs. This one time I told the guy to override all the commands I gave him, hoping he'd help me pulp bodies, and instead he climbed the fence to attack the hordes of zombies on the other side. I stepped back to fight some stragglers and the game popped up an achievement congratulating me on breaking all my limbs at once. It wasn't for me. Another NPC got a crossbow, but he didn't have enough strength to reload it, so he just shot once and stood around. You should also frequently check on them to make sure they haven't been bit or poisoned. I safe scammed this one since I thought the guy had died because of a bug, but occasionally there's deaths you can't avoid. Pro tip, don't leave NPCs alone in other floors or combat will bug out. So what are they good for? Killing. When you have a group of NPCs all ready to fight, your group can basically handle anything short of a Hulk or a gun-toting robot. But still, the amount of control you have on them is kind of pitiful. You can tell them to focus a particular zombie and you can tell them to move in a specific tile, so they often get in your line of fire or shoot a lesser threat. Particularly frustrating is when they get their weapons stolen by a technician zombie, so they decide the best course of action is either to wield their armor or straight up punch the zombie brutes. Good thing is that they can shoot just fine, so forget about saving ammo. You know, when life gives you gun moans, make gun monade. But still remember to carry bandages and antiseptics with you. By the way, there's a good variety of zombies. There's the whole L4D2 crew, except these smokers just create a smoke screen to hide the hordes approach and suffocate you. Among them, feral humans, shockers that electrocute you, Kevlar zombies that don't just wear Kevlar like SWAT zombies but are made of Kevlar, don't ask me how, and pupating zombies hosting flesh raptors, which I'm not sure what they are. But zombies aren't the only things you'll have to fight. There's eldritch horrors materializing from who knows where, causing hallucinations and experimenting on humans. Thankfully, there's a lot of options when it comes to dispatching enemies. Melee weapons are pretty good with the right stats and martial art. Martial arts give bonuses based on your melee and unarmed skill and allow for different techniques while working with different weapons. For example, a trench knife is a great Muay Thai weapon, while the corpse of Caroline Bullet Gibbons Human Fresh is not a valid Muay Thai weapon. If you got high strength, Muay Thai is great. If you got perception, Tai Chi is better. Ninjutsu deals a lot of damage with the first strike, but sucks against crowds. And if you're not planning on using melee, Taekwondo helps you while wielding guns too. It deals very little damage, but it's better than nothing. Spears work with very few martial arts, but they often have reach attacks, allowing you to hit enemies before they get in range. Beware though, some enemies got reach attacks too. But this game adheres to the Underrail school of solving problems. You're often able to clear a huge horde of zombies by luring them into Molotov fires, or you can kite the vast majority of them with just a bike. You can also plant traps, use vehicle turrets, or just run them over, but just betting them on furniture or rather hard terrain will be extremely beneficial. That's because everything acts simultaneously, so if you try running away with a broken leg, zombies will catch up, and swinging a ᵦᵦᵃ will take way more than swinging your fist. So you can wait for zombies behind a makeshift chair barricade and attack them before they can claw at you. But not all enemies are bloodthirsty savages. Riot bots, for example, are summoned by an automated bot if they see you commit a crime. They don't want to kill you, just taste, gas, and handcuff you, but these are sturdy BLM-proof bots, so they can easily take on a crowd of undead people unless there's some particularly troublesome special in there. Talons and Crows are robots with guns and require a more indirect approach. If you suspect there's turrets around, keep safe mode on. This feature will stop you from moving if you spot an enemy.
Maybe I can still make it.
But if you know what you're doing, you can just shoot them. Just kidding, this character is a cyborg and can move at the speed of sound. Yes, there's cybernetics you can install, provided you have the skills and the luck to do so. Some of these are so impractical it's funny. Imagine surgically implanting a clock in your brain instead of carrying a watch, or putting wrenches in your hands because carrying around a toolbox was too much. There's stat increases, extra armor, and even the ability to phase through walls, among others. The system works by capping the bionic slots in each part of your body and requiring power storage and a way to fill it, from solar panels, internal gasoline tanks, joint torsion ratchets, and even fucking retractable wind blades. What else is there? Mutations. You know what's the only thing sexier than brains on a woman? Tentacles on a woman. And Jean had 14 of them, the perfect waifu. See, some mutations are stat increase, but other allow you to interact with the environment in unique ways. This character, for example, was a cephalopod mutant. She had underwater vision and gills, so she could lure zombies in the water and kill them at her leisure with a spear gun. Although while I'm on it, I'd like to quickly beg the developers to add more water locations. Something like an underwater and partially flooded lab would not only incentivize water mutations, but would also be fun to loot with the already existing and somewhat useless scuba diving gear. Water setting on world generation would be great too. Not only there's too much water on normal worlds, but I'd also love to do a Subnautica-esque playthrough. And last thing on my water wishlist, a pinniped mutation tree. Returning to mutations, you can also mutate without mutagen. For example, a Rat King, which apparently is just a ball of rats, will turn you into a rat as you fight it, so maybe don't punch it. I'd say you've heard enough about gameplay, let's talk about installing. Congratulations, you've decided to play the game. But first thing first, you actually haven't, because you need to decide between Cataclysm Dark Days Ahead and Cataclysm Bright Nights. Dark Days Ahead, or TDA, is the main line of the game. It gets new features, content, bugs and terrible ideas almost daily, but you can just play a stable version instead of the experimental, and that's mostly bug free. If you decide to play DDA, I strongly advise you to use the launcher, all links are in the description. With this useful tool, you'll be able to update the game to a specific build and revert to the previous version if it fucks up. Anyway, the biggest difference is that while DDA tries to implement changes for realism's sake, Bright Nights try to keep things less complex. For example, in DDA, food freezes during the night and some thawed food becomes mushy and thus less enjoyable. Not the case in Bright Nights. In DDA, you have no real idea how good you're doing calorie-wise unless you become fat or malnourished. That's because your character can only tell when they're satiated, not that they're eating well. Although you are told when your character feels weak or when you start getting scurvy from lack of vitamin A. Bright Night has a more traditional hunger mechanic. There's more minor differences, like the pocket system of DDA instead of Bright Nights volume pool, but the biggest one is that Bright Nights actually has a win condition, so if you're not into pure sandbox games, it's definitely the one to play. So the choice is between cool but somewhat needless realism versus a more gamey experience. Personally, I play and enjoy both. It's too early in their forking to tell which one is the best. Once you've chosen, download the game, a sound pack and a tileset. And finally you're ready to play, right after you've made a world. Firstly, you choose the mods. I'll give my thoughts on some of these later on. Then the world setting. Leave these settings alone for a while, but check these ones out. It's a good idea to start the first day at 5 AM when the sun's just about to rise, and also start earlier in the spring so you can hold off the summer heat for a while. Wandering hordes aren't something I tried much because I was warned that they were buggy, but I think they're fine now. Basically, there's hordes of monsters roaming around town and being attracted to noises even outside the reality bubble. I play without them, but mostly out of habit. With a world created, you can make a character. I suggest playing single pool because it's the less restrictive option. And now, just choose. To notice that you can have multiple characters in the same world, but they can't interact with each other. My favorite start is Mist. This plops you in town with an NPC. Occasionally you will spawn into certain death, but especially by starting at dawn, you should be able to choose and clear a nice house on the outskirts of town and start a base there. Plenty of furniture to deconstruct, nearby places to loot, and maybe an oven to start fires in. But for your first run, I suggest an evacuee start, which puts you in a shelter just out of town. You can make a nice base as you familiarize yourself with the game and the keybinds. I'm not going to give you a tutorial, figure stuff out by yourself, but if you need help, check out ᴃᴦᵍʰᵗ tutorials on YouTube. Here's a couple of quick tips. Use loot zones. After a couple of levels, deactivate your driving skill auto learn so you don't waste your focus getting to a location and can actually level up fighting skills. Learn hotkeys, of course, use the item finder, use the filters on the crafting screen, and lastly, don't be afraid to save scam. There's no shame with a little rewind when you're just learning the ropes. Once you died a couple of times and you think you get the gist of it, maybe try a mod or two. Here's the ones I played in brief. Aftershock. Lots more sci-fi. There's convenient stuff like atomic power tools that don't need recharging, but also more cybernetics and some alien life forms being studied on Earth. I always run it. Magicalism. It basically changes the setting in an urban fantasy. There's magic-focused locations, mutually exclusive classes, a ton of spells, and fantasy enemies. It's pretty good, but maybe play vanilla first. Arcana. Like Magicalism, it has spells too, but also more magical items. By crafting seals, you'll be able to summon shoggoths and other Lovecraftian creatures to fight for you. But not only summons are extremely powerful, removing almost all the challenge from the game, but they also have a lot of trouble navigating floors. I don't like it as much as Magicalism. Dino Mod. Nowhere as cool as zombie dinosaurs ought to be. Mostly a meme. Dark Skies Above. It wants to be an XCOM-like total conversion, but it removes more content than it adds and aliens take too much to show up. I intend to try it again, but I wasn't impressed. Generic guns sacrifices some realism to make managing your pile of guns less annoying. I don't run it, but I guess it's good. Crazy Cataclysm! A couple of strong choke monsters. Don't bother. And these are part of the mods that come with the game pre-installed. There's a lot more online. And now I can finally start complaining. Keep in mind that, as I said, this game gets updated daily, so these might not be up to date. First of all, the somewhat horrible balance. There is no reason whatsoever in this game to not always use guns. If you go for a melee build, you need to constantly drop your backpack and other clothes to fight better because of encumbrance. Wow, guns are better than fists. What a shocking revelation, right? Sure, but consider this. Martial arts training books are somewhat rare, the martial arts themselves are very stat dependent, so not all of them are useful, and good melee weapons have to be forged. With proficiencies, that takes forever. That's basically a way to differentiate between practical and theoretical skill, which has some hilarious result like making a pair of boots take up 5 fucking days, but also discourages crafting in general. It's better with mods like Cataclysm since you can craft special weapons that are worth the time. Furthermore, there's the stamina system where if you run out of stamina during a melee fight, you will die. So you either level up your dodge, melee and weapon skill, find and learn a martial art, watch your encumbrance and tank the occasional hit, dealing with the resulting pain and damage, or you pick up an M4 which you find literally on the ground anytime and kill up to a Kevlar Hulk. Its ammo is also the most common, maybe second only to shotgun shells. Oh, and you can put a silencer on it. Even among guns, the M4 is the great equalizer, but rather than nerfing it, I'd just like to see crafting made easier. Because sure, a flintlock carabine actually killed zombies in one hit, but who in the right mind would spend days building it and gather the materials and tools needed to craft its ammo when there's M4s everywhere? That's why I started running Cataclysm. Spells are very powerful and are a good alternative to guns, while not being omnipotent because of mana limitations, spellbook's rarity and training time. Mutagen is also high risk low reward, but that's easily fixable with mods and a robust genetics trait. The second admittedly subjective flaw would be an excessive focus on realism, but I talked about this at length in the DDA vs Bright Knights section. The third thing I want to complain about is pacing. It's all over the place. There's always those couple of times in the playthrough where you have to spend days at home just reading and it gets a bit dull. Or it might take forever to find an acetylene torch to modify vehicles. Although this is mostly tied to map generation, which, side note, can get somewhat fucky at times. And speaking of vehicles, once you create your mobile base and start accumulating loot, there's nothing to really work towards. Although, let's be clear, playing a Wayfarer character and not having any vehicle isn't better, it's just slower and forces you to use up more resources before moving away. And using animals as storage isn't a great workaround. Once the Deathmobile is ready, perhaps in the first season if you're lucky enough, you'll essentially have anything you could want, and then it's just endless pillaging of labs or military locations. This is why Bright Knights has a win condition, but I've also found quests to be a good thing to concentrate on to keep playthroughs going. Quests have a tendency to send you far away and into danger, which naturally leads you to discover more locations, face more enemies and conquer new environments. At the same time, you loot so much stuff that keeping track of which tool you need, which one needs a battery, which one is ready and what recipes you've recently unlocked is nearly impossible. So after a couple of in-game weeks, it will feel like you're hoarding tools rather than progressing through a tech tree. Finally, there's the expected bugs.
And I've decided that I want to die.
Just ignore everything that doesn't crash your game and get familiar with the cheats menu. Eventually, you will need it. So, that was Cataclysm. Pretty good game. It's one of my favorite time wasters. It does have a couple of annoying parts and you will probably get bored of any run that makes it past a season, but it has extremely fun moments and it's incredibly deep. I thoroughly recommend you try it out if it sounds interesting. That's it. Thanks for watching. I'll leave you with my favorite moment. See ya!